everybody, and welcome to the Filipino Free Thinkers podcast that's called The Meetup. I am Red, and I'm joined today by Teresa Herrera. Hi, welcome.
Hi, Red. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. And before anything else, this show is going to be about mental health. It's going to talk about sensitive issues like suicide. I think we should mention it. We'll mention it as well at the end of the show. If you are having those kinds of thoughts related to suicide or depression, there's a hope line. We're flashing the details on the screen. It's 804-HOPE. That's 4673 and 0917-558-HOPE 4673-2919 on Globe and TM. That's toll free. So yeah, consider contacting those numbers. They're free. And yeah, the details are also in the description. So we're talking about Every Brilliant Thing. So how did you come across this production?
So I came across the script 2 years ago. I had heard about it and I bought the play and actually read it. And it's one of those things that I couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks. You know, of course I was laughing and crying as I was reading it, and I was visualizing how this show would be staged. Not that I'm a director or anything, I'm not. I'm just like seeing the storytelling aspect of it. And I thought, wow, if ever I get this opportunity, this would be a really interesting project to do. So, and this was like 2 years ago. And then I had a few conversations with some director friends here who are in theater and a couple of producers. And then I came across Toff Divanesha, and I sent him a message. And I said, hey, have you ever heard of this play? I think it might suit your production company, Sandbox Collective, because they do more like smaller, thought-provoking, groundbreaking productions that you don't normally see. It's not the normal theater.
Yeah.
And so he goes, okay, and he was out of town. I messaged him on Facebook. He was out of town. He messaged me back, what play is it? I said, Every Brilliant Thing by Duncan Macmillan. And he goes, oh my goodness. He goes, actually, we shortlisted this play for 2018, but we went ahead and went with Lungs, which they produced starring Jake Cuenca and Sad Jose last year, which is also beautiful and amazing. And then, so Every Brilliant Thing didn't make it. I said, okay, well, when you get back, let's just have a conversation. Let's sit down and let's talk about it. If it's something you're interested in, this would be something I'm very interested in doing.
Great.
One conversation led to another, led to, okay, which director do you think would be great at it? Jenny Hamara. Okay, we invited Jenny to a meeting, and it's just kind of like, it just started gelling and started taking its own energy. And, I'm one of those people that I don't believe in coincidences. I believe everything happens for a reason. And when you have that energy coming together, go with it.
Yeah.
You run with it. So it was one of those.
So this was 2014, I think, when it first came out, and it's been going around the world. Sold out performances everywhere, even in the country. I think, before we get into anything else, I want you to check out the page Sundance. Is it
the Sandbox. The Sandbox Collective.
Sandbox Collective. Check out their shows because these sell out really fast. I almost did not get my tickets for it, but thankfully I did. But check it out. Check out the details. We'll flash it on the screen. It's on the description as well. So get a ticket before it's sold out again.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get into it. What is this about? What makes this story unique? Tell us about the story a bit without spoiling too much.
Okay, so first and foremost, the story is beautiful. It's a story about a young girl who creates a list of every brilliant thing there is about life and about the world and about living. And she presents it to her mom every time her mom comes back from the hospital from attempting to commit suicide. So in a way, it's a beautiful chronicle of small joys that we sometimes take for granted or we overlook in our day-to-day lives. Something as sunlight and chocolate and juice, but and this character spans from 7 years old to about 35 years old. So you see her grow in these different stages of life.
Yeah, that's great. So it's kind of like a gratitude journal, right?
In a way.
Like a living, because this person grows older.
Yeah, you continue with a list. Yeah.
And it's a very heavy topic, but you make it humorous and inspiring and heartfelt as well.
Yes.
And the structure is very unique. Tell us a bit about the uniqueness of, like you said earlier that you want to do these projects that are not the usual theater.
Yes.
So what makes this different from the usual theater, and what makes it fun for audiences?
I think at around 32 or 33, I decided I only wanted to become involved in projects that I truly believe in and tell stories with a heart and soul. Okay, so with that, I said no to a lot of things. But with this one, it's so unique because number one, Duncan Macmillan is an incredible writer. And he co-wrote this play with Johnny Donahoe. And he came up with a lot of the humorous and comedic elements and the improv elements of this show. Now, the format of the show it's theater in the round, which means the performer standing in the middle and the audience is surrounding you 360 degrees.
That's
so
awesome.
That in itself, like for me, I teach yoga in a circle. I got married in a circle. So for me, I like that kind of energy of being enclosed because I feel a lot of love in that space. Now, going back to the story and how it's told, look at it this way. You know, back in our primal tribal days when people sat around a campfire and told a story, we're going back to those old storytelling. It's really simple storytelling. You know, we have a very simple setup, not too many props, not too many things. It feels very intimate. The lights are on. People could see and look at each other. And that's what the writer wanted. You know, it's kind of a metaphor for life. He wanted the subject of mental health to be discussed openly. And authentically and honestly with each other. And this play kind of lends that platform.
So I don't know if I'll call this a one-person show, like a one-woman performance, because everyone is involved. Like, is it too much of a spoiler to tell people that they could potentially be?
You can potentially be involved.
You can
it's a one-woman interactive show where I help cast audience members to help me tell the story. And so far, so good. It's been amazing. Like when people you give them that space and people step into that space and they come into their own power and they even go further and they have a monologue and I'm like, okay, sure. You know, it's great.
And I have friends who've seen this several times already because every time they watch it, it's a different show for them. Right? And I would watch this another time, maybe just focusing on the reactions of the audience to everything that's happening. Because again, you can see everyone. It's a very intimate thing, and I think as a lot of people there are as much a part of the story as you are, right?
There's definitely an audience investment and engagement, you know, because not only are they going to be saying parts of the list, but they could potentially be my dad or my husband, or you know what I mean? It's really interesting that way. So
Duncan Macmillan, the playwright, like he said in an interview that theater at its best is an intervention. Yes. So what do you think about that? About the role that art plays in talking about difficult things like mental health, like depression, like suicide?
I believe that's our role. You know, I believe art, whether it's visual, performing, you know, painting, sculpture, anything. I believe that art is there to kind of highlight life, you know, create a heightened sense of awareness. And theater does a very good job of that due to its format. I think Duncan Macmillan relates this format to more like a Brechtian theater, which is more like really engaging the audience, but also allowing the audience to think for themselves and create their own action after they watch the play. You know, which is what really good stories do. Whether you watch a good movie or a television or theater, you come out of there thinking, okay, I'm going to make different choices now. I'm going to have a different point of view about life because I saw this.
And like you mentioned, sparking conversation, sparking thought. After these things, you have a sort of discussion on the issues raised by the performance. So after every show we have a talk back session, which is formatted to run about 20 to 30 minutes post show. Of course there's a 5-minute break after the show and then before the talk backs start, and usually the talk backs it's hosted by normally Kaki Teodoro, our associate producer, and also the alternate performing in Every Brilliant Thing, Tofta Venetia, the artistic director, and also our director, Jenny Hamora. They're usually
heavily involved in the talkback, as well as a mental health professional. Because we wanted to make sure that after every show, whether you come into this show having some mental health challenges or you know someone that has, we want you to come out of there with some answers and some tools. And if you have any questions for yourself, this would be a safe space to do it in.
So what are some common misconceptions that people who come into this and then they come out and then they realize, like I didn't know that was the truth about people who have this condition. So what are some common, like that adds to the stigma? Like I know, for example, that sometimes people see mental health conditions as different or separate from other physical conditions. Like you don't tell someone who like has a sprain or broken arm that just get over it, just cheer up, just get up, like
exactly.
Just walk it off. You don't say that. You tell them to go to the hospital,
yes.
Get the proper assistance, right? But why is it different when it comes to mental health? So that's one
Correct.
thing.
Well, having a mental health professional there, like we've had a neuroscientist, we've had psychologists, psychiatrists there. So we have a science background as well, because we can't just say out of opinion. I'm not a doctor, I'm a performer, and I'm relating from a character point of view. But then they step in and say, okay, based on research, based on what we're finding, it's A, B, C, or if you're not the one going through a mental health challenge, and you're a caretaker of one, they give you tools for that as well, because mental health affects everyone. This issue is affecting everyone, and to think that you're not going to be affected would be very
misguided, maybe,
misguided or naive.
Yes,
because this issue is here. It's here to stay. So what can we do, and how can we move forward responsibly and authentically? Which is what we want to do. We want to help people and provide tools for people and open up the conversation and take out the stigma.
So what's the feedback like? Have you done that? Have you done what you've set out to do, which is to address this issue, to spark conversation? So what have the responses been like? What stories have people told you about, what they've done after this show? Yeah,
well, first of all, it's incredible. The talkback is lasting just as long as the show.
Wow.
So it's lasting about an hour after, depending on how much people want to share. Now, I can't really share people's stories. They have to be, we create that safe space so that people can go there and share and ask questions. But one of the most interesting talkbacks that we've had was one of the shows was bought by Show Buyer, and it was all teachers, Department of Education teachers from Antipolo. And they were asking really intelligent questions about, okay, we see this all the time as teachers. Now, what can we do about it? We can only do so much before we have to ask the parents for consent. Or, they're asking really intelligent action ideas or tools or programs that can be implemented. That to me was a very meaningful show, because we just had an audience of 140 people who are now going to go help and teach in their own classes.
So it makes you want to act. It makes you want to take action to actually help people. It's that kind of play, which is why I really think people should watch this.
Or even just open up the conversation in your own home, in your own community, in your own office. It's okay to talk about it.
In your own context, like mental health issues will be different. Speaking of contexts, you brought it here from abroad, of course. And the original actor was a man. Yes. Right?
Johnny Donahoe.
And I read somewhere that one of the reasons that you chose to cast a woman in this is you were inspired by the people who fought for mental health. People like Teresa Herrera-Anthony, the advocates and the other legislators.
Absolutely.
So how much of a challenge was it, like doing this gender swap, like from man to woman? Like, do you think there was a special consideration there, or was it?
Not really.
Not really.
At least for me, there wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just a creative direction that the producer chose to do. They wanted to go with a female performer and a female director, and I think a lot of people on our team are female.
That's great.
Because it is being powered, like the Mental Health Act was a primarily women team that pushed that act forward. And thank you so much for that, because now a lot of people will get help.
And was there something special that you considered for the Filipino audience? Like maybe there are other, like sensibilities that weren't there in the original script. Like, did you have any sort of considerations bringing it to the Philippines?
Well, the director, Jenny Hamora, chose to, how do you say, she wasn't really too sensitive about, let's localize it.
Yeah, okay.
Because she knows that my background is both Filipino and American,
Yeah.
because I grew up in the States. She localized it in the sense of as close to your experience and what you can relate to as possible, which gave me the freedom as an actor to create those memories in my mind. So I didn't really have to, even the songs that are played there, we actually stuck to a lot of the original songs because they were jazz. Jazz is very representative of mental health issues. A lot of people committed suicide in that space. So a lot of it's already, and music in general, in films, in television, and theater, creates the emotional mood of a show. So we wanted to stick to as much as originality as possible. It's just that we swapped it, and for me, it wasn't a big issue at all.
So I like that because it shows that we have shared, experiences anywhere in the world. People get sad, people are happy about things, people take for granted the little things, and that's an experience that we share everywhere, right?
It's a human experience, whether you're a man, woman, old, young, child, it doesn't matter.
It can happen to anyone, right?
You could be rich, you could be poor, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, see, that's one of the misconceptions, right? Like people have so many misconceptions, like people who get depressed, who attempt to hurt themselves, like they have a certain template stereotype, but no, it can happen to anyone, and this is one of the messages of this show. So speaking of change, how have you changed coming into this? Before you did this, and then doing it so many sold out shows. Like, how has this changed you? The response of the audience there. What you've learned after these talkbacks.
I think the whole journey, starting from the readings to the preparation to the rehearsals, is just allowing myself to be more vulnerable as an artist, as a performer, really stripping down the masks and getting rid of those, those blocks that just keep us from things, whether in performing or in life, and just really dropping that. I think that's one of the biggest lessons for me is just being more vulnerable in order to access her life and her authenticity and her story. I
agree. And that vulnerability, like you acknowledge that even in the unique format where it's communal. Like, this is not something you can deal with alone. You need a community. Like no one can go at this. It's very hard to do things alone. And asking for help from others, just from one person, is already a big step, right?
Yeah, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, because it's like when I'm performing and I'm looking at the audience, because I have to look at the audience members, right? So, and I see people tearing, and I see people holding back the tears. Or sometimes I look at people not even looking at me, and I'm thinking, maybe they're not liking the show. But then afterwards at the talk back, they're the ones who have the most questions. So zero judgment. I'm in no position to, I just look at people and take what energy they give me, and I give that back, and I see the love, I see the support, I see the pain, I see it all. Like, people's eyes are amazing.
Yeah. So in a few days, I will be watching this. I will anticipate crying myself. I know myself. I think it's gonna be an emotional one. I'm so excited to watch you. Thank you for doing this, for bringing this show to the Philippines. Thank you for being on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And again, these are the numbers that you should call if you have thoughts about depression, mental health, suicide, and all that. There are numbers. There are people that you can talk to. These are 24/7 hotlines, these hotlines. They're in the description as well. Please like, share, and subscribe. This will be on Spotify, on iTunes as well.
Cool.
YouTube and Facebook. So thank you. Any other things that you'd like to tell our audience and your potential audiences before we end the show?
Yes, thank you for having me. I love this group, Filipino Free Thinkers. I love
you.
this guy,
Thank you.
Hank Tin. They're doing such a great service to our community. And yeah, if you get a chance, do come and join us on the show. There's a possible extension, so do tune in. Just check out at the Sandbox Co on Instagram, or you can also, I make an announcement on my Instagram at love.teresaherrera.
And thank you. See you next week.